Good morning. This is Shindo. One of the first arguments that I got in about Trump was the idea several months ago that he was talking about suspending certain First Amendment rights, basically. At the time, the liberals who still believed that there wasn't a snowball's chance in hell that he'd become president were sort of dismissing what he said because certainly the Constitution would prevent Trump from doing that. Folks, the Constitution is a piece of paper, and it has not prevented presidents in the past from suspending your First Amendment rights. A bill was passed and signed into law, just signed into law on Friday. That would have been the 23rd, right before Christmas, by Obama, that is going to affect your First Amendment rights. Now, this is not a new thing. Presidents have done this before. Yes, I know. It's a shocker, isn't it, that presidents of the United States, a position that I am personally against. There should not be a president of the United States. I agree with George Washington when he said that it is too much like a king. The president of the United States has suspended through Congress, through acts of Congress, but the fact that they even bring it up is totally goes against the Constitution. That is, that they have suspended the First Amendment rights of people before. John Adams did it. If you look in your history, now I'm just doing this off the top of my head, so I may not get the exact act's name correctly, but John Adams, which was one of our first president during the War of 1812, which was our second war with the British, he passed a law through Congress called the Alien and Sedition Acts. Now, the Alien was to prevent any immigration, and the Sedition Acts were about people who are practicing their First Amendment right to speak against the government. But because it was a war going on, he believed that it was within his right to suspend people's right to speak against the government during wartime. So that's a Sedition Act. Woodrow Wilson did it during World War I. So this has been done before. And I'm telling you, it's being done again. It's being done right now before our eyes. And it's something that I had an argument with. First big argument I had about Trump was that I mentioned that he is talking about suspending people's First Amendment rights. At the time, I was confident that Trump would become president of the United States because I know who Trump is. I knew then. This is from the Ring of Fire Network. Now, if you like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. Click like on my videos. Comment and share my videos. This is about what Obama has done just a few days ago, right before Christmas. Obama signs dangerous law which allows government to decide what is, quote, truth. As it became par for the course in 2016 political discourse, cybersecurity has become the new front for terrorism, with U.S. people handing over total control to the government in search of safety. Folks, terrorists aren't the scary thing. Terrorists don't scare me at all because the likelihood of me being killed by a terrorist is very, very small. However, our reaction to terrorism. That is the scary thing. And if you think that President Obama is somehow just totally against Trump, then why in the world would he give Trump this kind of power? Using the fear of cyber attacks from foreign nations, President Obama and others have been working this past week to sign into law an act which claims to counter propaganda in the name of national security, handing the power of truth-telling to government entities. On Friday, while most of the world was looking elsewhere, President Obama signed H.R. 5181 into law, an act which purports to allow the continued curtailing of the freedom of the press in exchange for cybersecurity, but which will do far worse. The Countering Foreign Propaganda and Disinformation Act of 2016 was proposed on June of this year and was signed by the President on Friday. The act seeks a, quote, whole government approach without the bureaucratic restrictions, unquote, in defense against, quote, foreign disinformation and manipulation, unquote, to maintain the world's, quote, security and stability. This act allows various government agencies to form a coalition to pursue and identify foreign nations who attempt to interfere with American technology through hacking or cyber attacks. Once located, the government will then attempt to inform the public and share the, quote, real truth, whatever that is. Under this act, the Secretary of State would join the Secretary of Defense, the Director of National Intelligence, and the Broadcasting Board of Governors to form a special coalition to, quote, establish a Center for Information Analysis and Response, unquote, which would then attempt to influence the public away from these foreign attack narratives with a, quote, fact-based response, unquote. Considering that we would simply have to rely on the word of these entities in order to know if something is true or not, you can easily see the conflict here. We can't trust our government to tell us the truth about nuclear weapons in Iraq or run our DMV, but we want to hand over the keys to the propaganda machine to those same officials? How long is it before the same coalition is used by President Trump to go after legitimate news organizations who are critical of him? It's astounding that on the eve of democracy's end, President Obama has handed Trump the golden egg he needs to attack our free press and spread government-sanctioned propaganda. This is a dangerous president, and one that will likely not stop at just identifying the sources of so-called fake news. Now, our wonderful POTUS will announce a program to prosecute anyone who created or shared fake news. And guess who gets to decide what is true and what is false? Folks, the news, it's already happening. When you don't hear, I just did my last video about what the Turkey Prime Minister Erdogan said about how the United States is supporting ISIS in Syria. That's no shock to me. It shouldn't be a shock to anyone. Look, anything that you see, any news story that you hear, any news story that you read, you have to take with a big old bunch of skepticism. When it comes to our government, we are basically, at this point, going into, at least, if not already there, a sort of communist dictatorship when it comes to what news we get. And this is nothing new. It's called yellow journalism, if you want to look that up. Yellow journalism. There is an entire war that was fought against the Spanish over something that was, it happened, but it was not caused by the Spanish. and that is the Maine that blew up in the harbor in Cuba. This is in 1898. So if you know history, then you know that this is nothing new. And every time it happens, I imagine the ill-informed about history, which is virtually everyone that hasn't gone and gotten a history degree, and most people who get history degrees are already, flag-waving patriotic types. So they ignore the facts that are in front of them often. That this country, just like any other country in the world, does this. That it is a propaganda machine telling you what is true and what is not true. Our First Amendment rights, folks, our First Amendment rights are going to be trampled upon. They do this in a number of ways. I have seen videos that my wife and I do. Either she does separately, or I do separately, or we do together. And you can see that these videos that speak up against the when we do them together, we're not usually talking about government agencies. Although I've been talking about news articles now for several months, I didn't used to do that. It's only because there's been a bit of an overlap with what we were already doing, which was speaking out against the church, and now what's going on in the government, because now the church has put in its biggest and most wonderful candidate, who is the beast, Donald John Trump. So now that we have this overlap, I am talking about the government as well. I didn't really do that much before. But you see, I've known about this for some time. As far as historically, I've taken these history courses in college. You have to be objective. And the only purpose for them teaching you history in high school and in middle school is to indoctrinate you into believing that the United States of America can do no wrong. They don't care who you vote for as long as you're out there voting. If you're out there voting, it shows that you actually still believe in this construct that they tell you is democracy, which it's not. It's not. It's never been that. We are used just like in any other country. They just happen to call this a democratic republic. But just as always, you will find this article in the description box. If you like what I do, please subscribe, click like, comment, share my videos. This is Shindo. You have a good Wednesday.